felt it would give us the best access to the strongest possible group of senior insurance decision makers.
InsurTech Insights is a must-do conference, I think, for the network that is built here.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here in London, have an excuse to come visit. And my name's Scott Hamispar. I'm a solution consultant with CatRisk. Can we go back to the cover slide? I need to go back to the cover slide. Go back. All right, well, I don't know. A show of hands, anybody use catastrophe models? Right on, got a couple folks. I'll try to make this I'll talk quick, and hopefully there's time for Q&A afterwards. CatRisk is a company that's illuminating natural catastrophe risks with climate science and statistics. I wanted to tee up the situation because I knew a lot of folks at this conference weren't going to be familiar with catastrophe models. Just to talk about these natural catastrophes. According to Aon's 2015 Climate Insight Report, this is a $1 trillion plus problem for the industry. Just tropical cyclones and severe convective storms since 2020 have cost $1.46 trillion to the insurance industry. Economic loss is dramatically higher than that. And if you add up the sum of these perils, tropical cyclone, severe convective storm, flood, earthquake, drought, winter weather, wildfire, European windstorm, we're well over $2 trillion since 2020. Its effects are worldwide. Here we're looking, this is actually from Gallagher's year-end report, and we're seeing that this is on an economic basis. The size of the bubbles are how much the economic impact was, and then the colors are these very same perils. So we can see it's a very global problem. And really, it's only getting worse because temperatures are on the rise. Here we can see against a baseline, that's the IPCC baseline, 1850 to 1900. The last decade has been the hottest decade on record. 2025 is shaping up to be just as bad, and these trends are going to continue. Here on the right-hand side, we're looking at the Gulf of Mexico and sea surface temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico relative to the 1991 to 2020. And the major thing to note there is that when you look at weather patterns in the United States, sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic and in the Gulf are what drive these phenomena in a very major way. So it's not only climate change, but the variability associated with the El Nino and La Nina index, the sea surface temperatures in these regions. So enter stochastic catastrophe modeling. We began as an industry after Hurricane Andrew in the 90s, where the industry never thought they would see a loss so big, over $10 billion caused by a single hurricane. And we've seen since then a growing use of catastrophe models. Stochastic models are about creating many, many synthetic versions of how the future might occur so we can understand probabilities and understand a little bit more about the uncertainty and what's plausible and what's possible. I have some quotes here. The NAIC says catastrophe models continue to transform how insurers quantify, price, and transfer and manage risk. The American Academy of Actuaries say, historical information is generally insufficient for the predictions related to future catastrophes. As a result, we introduce catastrophe modeling, more accurate, more stable, more flexible. Lloyd's of London, I wanted to include something from this side of the pond. Catastrophe modeling technology now used extensively by insurers, reinsurers, governments, capital markets, and other financial entities. CatRisk is selling to all of these organizations and has clients, all types of organizations just like these. So what do catastrophe models do? Well, I've put up a slide here with too many words. You probably won't have a chance to be able to read them from where you are. On the right-hand side, I grabbed a snip from a Willis Towers Watson Managing Severe Convective Storm report from late last year. Here we can see all the different kinds of standard outputs that come from a catastrophe model, getting what's a return period loss. So what's a 1 in 100? There's a 1% chance of seeing a loss of what severity? An average annual loss, that's a mean value to say, what do I expect to happen? And a standard of deviation or a standard deviation or coefficient of variation to understand how uncertain am I about my estimate for what that future might look like. Here on the right-hand side, I pulled from the NAIC's Catastrophe Modeling Primer, which was issued in 2024, the types of questions that you might be able to ask. Fundamentally, catastrophe models are about understanding frequency, severity, what do I expect to happen, what's plausible, what could happen, and how certain am I about all those kinds of things. So the truth is, just like that prior slide showed, as this one as well, catastrophe modeling is complex. Aon did a survey of the kinds of users of our models, typically people with master's degrees, PhDs. They're using these tools to better understand these risks. And they say, well, what are the challenges just in general with using catastrophe models? Things like, how do you understand if the model is accurate or not? It's hard to validate when you don't have many severe incidents. How do you categorize and how do you capture this uncertainty? What's the right resolution of this model? How do you model the correlations between perils? These are very complex topics that deserve attention. So I wanted to introduce to you Cat Risk. We are an expert and growing leader in catastrophe risk modeling in a David and Goliath marketplace with two major providers. We are actually the startup that was actually founded in 2012. So we've been around for over a decade with models spanning 190 countries. We're located all over the world, pretty globally distributed. We have over 100 clients globally as well. 4 of the top 5 reinsurance brokers, 3 of the top 4 reinsurers, many large carriers, MGAs, bankers, and utilities. And I always like to thank our customers. It's because of insurance companies that this business can work. I've been building and selling these models for over 7 years, and it's a pleasure to be able to do this. It's something that I get a lot of personal value from, but it's because of insurers putting money on the line that we're able to do the kinds of things that we do, putting the kinds of science into these things. So always thanks to our partners. They drive us to be better, you drive us to be better, and we hope to give you tools that make you able to do your job better. So the Spatial Cat platform is really our apex product. There's a number of other products we'll sort of skip over for time. Spatial Cat does 50,000 simulations of the future. We do 5 consecutive years, 10,000 times. So any kind of insurance contract could be modeled in that lens. For every time that we have a loss happening in a simulation year, a hurricane hits Florida, we will have up to 1,000 samples for what that loss might look like. We are able to quantify risk at the location, account, portfolio level. You can quantify risk at any level that you want to understand when you're underwriting an account or when you're looking at portfolios, reinsurance structures. We have a full financial model in order to account for complex commercial reinsurance. Very fast run times. We ran our severe convective storm model on the largest, or one of the largest U.S. carriers in the U.S., well over 10 million locations. It runs in 4 hours. This is something that's orders of magnitude faster than our competitors. Global correlations between perils and regions. If it's raining in Europe, what does that mean about the U.S.? If the U.S. is seeing higher hurricane exposure due to what's happening in Australia? These are the kinds of things we've explicitly captured in our event set. Climate change, climate variability, these are included. So as I already mentioned, sea surface temperatures, El Nino, La Nina, the Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation. These are global teleconnection patterns that connect what's happening in the weather in one part of the world with other parts of the world. So it's dry one place, it's wet in another. And being able to understand that stuff matters a lot if you're taking bets all over the world. What's the correlation between those bets? Climate change, we'll talk a little bit more about. I think the second to last bullet is the one I really want to talk about. Unlike the big box providers that are out there, we are a fully transparent organization. We don't hide behind assumptions that you don't get to see. Every element of our model is totally transparent. So you get the chance to interrogate, understand how we built something, and very often customize those things. So looking at an individual example, individual location analysis, we're working with a broker who's got a risk they're having a hard time placing. It's that building on the right. They put a dot up and they said, hey, cat risk, we're a little confused. It says it's in a FEMA flood risk zone, so they said flood risk exposure, but the AAL, average annual expected sort of an expected loss, is really low. So what's the discrepancy? We open up our maps and we are able to see that that location is uniquely positioned slightly higher than, with slightly less exposure than the surrounding area. But of course, it's a little hard to see with that dot. So we say, why don't we draw a footprint over it and then help to understand what do we think the expected loss is for this given location? For the whole footprint, our mean loss is 70. So it's on a percentage basis a lot higher, but 70 is still a very low number. But the max loss, if I took the whole $3 million building and I put it in the worst grid cell, then we think the loss could be as high as 38,000. So we recommend that we confirm strong underwriting controls, whether there's a basement, what's the first floor elevation, the kinds of things that matter to flood risk to get this client profitable terms. That's an individual risk. What about at the portfolio level? Cat works with FEMA, and FEMA places over $3 billion through their ILS placement, FloodSmart, to the to capital markets. So we're working with them, going on road shows, preparing our documentation to get capital providers to put money behind multi-year deals where these capital kind of ILS deals to understand. And so Cat Risk has been the calculation agent for FEMA since 2018. Cat Risk worked with Munich Re and the Nature Conservancy to value levee expansion projects. Across the United States, they built all these levees to hypothetically control flood risk, but actually it makes the water flow faster. It makes the flood risk go up. We need to expand these levees and let there be natural defenses, but expanding levees costs a lot of money. Who's going to pay for it? Well, if you open up this one levee, you reduce the flood risk for an entire town. So how do we quantify that and then try to use the savings in order to finance the project? Cat Risk worked with the federal government in 2022, where we assessed every owned building by the federal government to say what does their flood exposure look like in 2050. So we're able to look at a variety of different climate change scenarios and understand. Cat Risk has over 200 climate change scenarios in our database, out to 2100. And we have a lot of climate sensitivity testing options and work with folks on all the regulatory reporting around climate change. One of our, that one's too many words. One of our case studies is around Neptune Flood Insurance. They are the largest private provider of flood after FEMA, which is the national option. And here's just a quote from their managing director and chief risk officer. I can't say it better than him. The flood models available in the market today, Spatial Cat is by far the most accurate. Cat Risk models have the granularity and ability to account for the impact of climate change to support Neptune's single risk modeling approach. So they're calling our APIs every time.